Welcome to the Springs in the Desert podcast. We're those friends that you can take with you wherever you are on the path of infertility.
Hello and welcome to the Springs in the Desert podcast. I'm Anne. I'll be your host for today's episode, and I am so excited to bring back one of our very dear friends, Leigh Snead. Welcome, Leigh.
Thanks, Anne. I'm always happy to be on the pod.
You are like a frequent flyer now on the podcast, so we're going to have to give you some kind of a punch card and think of a good prize.
A punch card. Yeah, some stickers maybe. I can turn them in for another podcast.
Yeah. All right. We'll have to think about that.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I think it was earlier in the year you were on the podcast and had a conversation with Cassandra about your forthcoming book, Infertile But Fruitful, Finding Fulfillment When You Can't Conceive. And we're having you back because now that book is out and available, and now that people can get it in their hands, we can do kind of a deeper dive. There are so many things that I really want to get into. I loved the book, and I just have so many questions and so many things to get into. We'll see how far we get. But before we really dive in, I wonder if you can tell me why a book about infertility and why now?
Well, it mostly, I think, was about being asked. I often am asked to be on a panel, or somebody knows somebody and, maybe about adoption or infertility. And I don't really like to talk about adoption that much. I only know about my own adoptions. I'm not an adoption specialist. And although I'm willing to share my own story, it's something, but I really realized that infertility was something I did like to talk about. And eventually, as I moved into my mid to late 40s, I felt more comfortable talking and writing about it. And so when I was approached to write something for National Infertility Week for the Register, I did. And then I wrote, I think, another piece too. And I got a lot of feedback, a lot of comments, messages, a lot of sharing. You get the word back that, someone who knew someone who didn't know they knew you saw the piece and sent it to someone who knew you. And I had a mentor who just said to me, I think this is really needed. People aren't talking about this. People are really responding. People are hungry for this. So I think this is your book, Leigh. You should write a book on this. And it just felt right at the right time. It worked for what I had going on in my life, for me emotionally and professionally. And here it is.
So, did you have any nerves at this point of writing the book? Or it sounds like you had come to a place of peace. Maybe you can, just for anybody who hasn't listened to the other episodes that you've been on, just a little synopsis of your story, and then what it was like to get from that point of all the emotions and the things that our listeners are very well familiar with to where you are now, where you feel like you can talk about it and write about it.
Yeah, I did have a long time. My husband and I married pretty young, 23. So the infertility stuff probably came in around 26, 27. Mm-hmm. And it stuck with me for 20 years, even though I had different periods of time where I was under doctor's care or not, or just actively trying, not trying, hoping, not hoping. We all go through it. But because I never got the word this is not going to work for you. This is what's wrong with you. Or didn't have a hysterectomy to make me permanently infertile. There was always that weird, every cycle, that little weird tinge of hope. Forever, and you forget about it, right? But then you think, oh, when was my last day one? And then you're like, oh, and it's strange how that never ever goes away. Although I say never ever, but I do think it is definitely, it's gone for me now. I just turned 50. I started writing the book in my late 40s. I was really starting to feel comfortable saying in my head and then eventually out loud, I am never going to be pregnant. Mm-hmm. And feeling that and owning it and realizing I wasn't going to be one of those crazy stories. I had really thought that I was never going to be one of those crazy stories for a long time. But then you really think it, like you really know it. This is not going to be some crazy thing, where she tries for 20 years and then gets pregnant at 47. That's not what's happening here. And I think that I was just ready. And I think there's something about perimenopause and re-grieving things, because it's the whole grieving for a fertility you never really had, what's going on. You're not quite shutting down. And then, of course, obviously your hormones are going to make you maybe extra vulnerable to feeling emotions, digging up old feelings, old hurts. It was just, yeah, I think it was the right time. And I often think about, and I was definitely motivated by that young bride in her 20s, me. But then I realized sometimes there's a part of it that I don't know if I would have been ready to hear all this then. I think that I actually am surprised how many young women are really enjoying the book, and even young unmarried women, which is interesting. And I like that there's gathering that information, because there's not always that presentation of the possibility of infertility, say like in a pre-Cana or marriage prep, or just in your own family experience. Maybe you come from a large family, you've never seen infertility really, maybe in a movie or something. And then to read this story and to see, oh, these are real people who really lived it. And this is actually a real thing that happens to normal people.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't expect it either. So I think that, but I do think I would have found some comfort in a book like this in those middle years, that like 30, 35 to 45, when you're still really struggling, the clock is ticking, that anything that could be fixable is fighting also just against the ravages of time. A lot. And I don't think I would have been able to relive all these things any earlier in my life. Sometimes I think maybe it was even too early now, but I am glad to like really have been a part of the conversation. I was definitely nervous about putting stuff out there. I'm a kind of a private person. My family is definitely like a private, like my mom is pretty private.
Yeah.
She's just wow. And my husband too, he's just flipping through. This is a really personal chapter, huh? It is, but I think that's what I have to give. That sort of frankness, that this is what it is. I'm just going to tell you it. This is a friend in written form.
Yeah, it really does have that feel, which is, I think, one of the reasons that I liked it. It was an easy read because it felt almost like having a friend sit across from you and having a conversation, which was great. So I want to pick up on that and go a little further with it, because I know when I was going through it, people who know the ministry and know me and have heard me on the podcast, that we're past it now. We're past childbearing. But when we were really going through it, I was that woman who was like 2 a.m., I'm under the covers with my phone, Googling things, or I'm making sure the computer doesn't face where my boss can see because I'm reading blogs about infertility, right? And it seemed at that time like every book that I picked up about infertility had a happy ending.
Oh, yeah.
And listen, okay, so we're not anti-happy ending.
And I feel like mine's got a happy ending. Yes, but we don't want to reduce the happy endings to success, right? Conception.
Yeah, right. To what you were saying about like the miracle. Oh, gosh, we want the miracles all over the place, even if the miracles don't happen for us. But so in the beginning, when I would read some of these books, it was like, oh, it is giving me hope. And then after a while, it was like, it just started to hurt, which made me feel guilty for that. And it wasn't until we found the book Under the Laurel Tree by Nicole Rokas that it was the first time that like grief and all the emotions was being dealt with. And I think that to me is a piece that is really missing. And even if you're in the middle of trying to conceive, it still can be hard. If you're having difficulty, like all those emotions and everything are still coming up. And I think you need some support, not just a keep going and it'll happen. So yeah, I wonder what your thought is on the sort of miracle stories. And did you find those kind of motivational when you were going through it all? Or did you have a little bit of a complicated relationship with those things?
I definitely did. Although again, because I think I was doing a lot of this in my late 20s. At first, I just thought, I've got time. We're obviously going to figure this out. We're obviously going to figure this out. And I don't know if that's necessarily age specific, but for me, I think it definitely was part of it. But really in those days, so let's look at early aughts, I had a hard time finding any book that wasn't about IVF. That was what I really found. And maybe that's just I lived in in DC, and that's what my Barnes and Noble carried. Yeah. So that was part of it too, that I was just like, this isn't my story. And there would be like some of the crunchier books. And I was like, okay, that's like more my approach to things. But there wasn't one that, and again, it's not like I've written some theological treatise, but it's somebody put it somewhere that there's like a Catholicism that haunts the book. And I like that because it's just more like, this is the story of a Catholic couple.
Yeah.
And so the things we're going to talk about are Catholic things. They're human things. Anyway, so I think that was definitely a hard thing, because even movies, like anything that you saw and you'd be like, oh, maybe they're infertile too. And then they get pregnant.
It is hard. And one of the things I love about the book too is that you're really honest about that throughout. And I think what we find in our community often is that people have a hard time with that honesty. Like they feel guilty. Oh, I'm not a good Catholic. I'm not a good Christian if I'm feeling jealous or angry, or even if I'm questioning God.
Yeah.
And so I can see from what you write that you had those moments too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and also I think I was an only child. I literally live upstairs in the noggin, which I think definitely contributed to a lot of that. And I think it was a weird sort of, I don't know, maybe divine, like little electric shot to my brain that I was able to like access those internal conversations that I had so long ago and remember them, because that was really the way I felt. And I really, again, for most of it, I was in graduate school, so I was able to hide. I didn't have to show up at an office job, a 9 to 5, see a lot of people. I could go in and out, but it's remembering like just where you lived, what you did. I think I even talk about the robe that I wore. Like it's such a, like a, just like suffering from infertility. It's such like a visceral, fleshy experience, the grief even. What are you doing? What things smell like? Where do you have to go? What are you going to do? How do you make yourself feel better? I took a lot of baths. A lot of people don't always have that leisure. And so you have to fight through these everyday things that we're obligated to do for other people, for ourselves. And then to have that on top, and then to feel bad about feeling bad.
Yeah.
I mean, that could really push you to the edge.
Yeah, because you can begin to feel like, oh my gosh, am I just so selfish and self-centered that I can't even move off of myself and pay attention to other people, much less my husband, right?
Right. I know. They get the short end of the stick a lot because of that. And I think that there's a real internal pressure oftentimes to be like a happy witness, even when you're going through it. Or even, I think we've talked about this a lot. It's so easy to be superstitious about these kind of things. And I think you can really get into that power of positive thinking mindset. It's if I act happy, if I'm confident it's going to work, if I don't think about what it's going to be like if it doesn't work or think about anything else, like it's just going to work and we're just going to do it. And I'm going to smile and I'm going to put my head down to the ground and we're just going to plow through this and we're getting pregnant. It's really, I think it's easy to think that way too. And that way you've got all these angry, sad, grief emotions happening and you're not giving them a voice even in your own head. And you're squashing them. And I think that adds to the exhaustion of every other sort of thing on your load right then.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought up the idea of superstition, because I wanted to go there a little bit. It makes me think about prayer, which sounds very blasphemous, but I think it's true that we can become superstitious about prayer, right? Oh. If I do the right prayers in the right order, somebody gave me this novena, I remember, I don't know if you got this, but a priest, a dear friend, gave me the powder from the milk grotto. And I drank that stuff. No offense, dear Mother Mary, but that was gross. But so prayer is good. Should you pray for a baby? Yes, absolutely. Yes. Okay. All of those things. But it can become a little bit superstitious, I think, which is a danger. But not so much about superstition, but about prayer. There is a passage in your book. I underlined it because it really spoke to me. And you write, I was too embarrassed, really too ashamed of my infertility to ask for prayers from others. Resorting to asking for prayers seemed to be admitting there might be a real problem, one that needed an actual miracle to overcome. I couldn't let myself go there quite yet. This too, I now regret. Failing to surrender myself completely to the help of prayers and refusing to allow myself to fully submit to God's will for us was a lost opportunity for grace. So, the reason I underlined that is because there were two things that jumped out at me. The first one was being embarrassed and ashamed, which I think our listeners who are on this path can relate to. And we can dive into that a little bit more if you want. But it was that last line, failing to surrender myself completely to the help of prayers and refusing to allow myself to fully submit to God's will for us was a lost opportunity for grace. That jumped out at me because the way I read it, and you wrote it and felt it, so you can tell me, but I'm so used to people saying, pray and it'll happen. And you seem to flip the script just a little bit. Not that you don't wish that you had a bunch of people storming heaven so that it might happen for you, but the lost opportunity for grace. Like, I think that's a piece of prayer that we, I don't know, don't recognize or think about because we're so focused on prayer result.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's what I read. Is there anything to that from your
Yeah.
perspective?
I mean, there's lots. And again, we were talking earlier, I think, that about memory and like living this again. And then now that it's done and I'm talking about it, I'm also thinking about these memories. And all I can think of now when I hear that is I think that was also a reflection of my formation at the time,
Mm-hmm.
not understanding what prayer was,
Yeah.
what the intercessions of the saints could mean for us.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up in a culture that talked about praying for people or really about it at all. Again, it was like even religion was very private. I didn't really have a ton of Catholic friends, especially I didn't really have too many like very close, like Anne Shirley says, bosom Catholic friends
Yeah.
to talk that way with. Not like I feel like I'm so blessed to have now, but so I think that was part of it. I also think at that time, because of my lack of formation, I just thought asking for prayers meant that it was really bad.
Yeah.
Kind of. I didn't see that thing, that opportunity for grace. That's definitely hindsight. Absolutely. And yeah, I think we think about jumping way ahead, and we've talked about fruitfulness and spiritual motherhood and all these things. And I do really think that prayer is so overlooked as a fruit in itself.
Yeah.
Right? Not this like prayer results thing, like you were just saying. And and I think that, wow, that could have been such a balm. And also, again, you just don't know how things work in time. And lost opportunity for grace. I did a nice job with that phrase.
Yes, you did.
It really was.
And
It really was. I still am mourning it. Because and I think, and that maybe that's one thing that my book could do for younger people or for people just starting on their fertility journey, that open yourself up immediately and do it, even if it's not infertility, like all the time. I feel like I have to remind myself all the time. This is what we do. This is what we believe. This is where we should go.
Yeah, we sure need all the opportunities for grace that we can just to grow in virtue or to get through marriage is hard in so many ways, infertility or not. So yeah, those opportunities just for that grace to, to strengthen our marriages and just ourselves. Yeah, I love that. So woven throughout the book is your adoption story. You alluded to that a little bit ago, which is beautiful, but it's not pushy. And of course, our sister ministry is Springs of Love, where we are very much see the fruitfulness of adoption, that there are people who are called to that. And it is just such a beautiful manifestation of the love in marriage, really. But I think sometimes, especially if it's still new and tender, people get a little tense about adoption. And also, frankly, sometimes it's suggested to us as here's the consolation prize. Oh, you couldn't do this. Now, immediately I have the solution for you. And presto, you get a baby.
And people want to help.
Yes, they do.
But it's, it takes just a practical advice. It always is helpful to take a beat and know that couple knows about adoption.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't need you to suggest it to them. And again, I think you and I've talked about this so many times, and I do try to make a point of it whenever I'm talking about infertility, because I do include my adoption story in it, because they went side by side for me anyway, that like, I feel like infertility is like a diagnosis, right? Medical diagnosis, and adoption is a calling. And we're all called to be fruitful, and that's not just babies.
Right.
And so I think that's important to remember that step. Like, there's the diagnosis, and then there's still the call to fruitfulness, but that can look like infinity of things. Because I think that for me, it wasn't a big decision. For other people, it is. And I think that it's easy to want to fix things, to help people. As much as I love to talk about it, it doesn't cure infertility. Like, it doesn't make those feelings go away. And I hope, that was, again, one of the reasons why I wanted to include it in this story. And still, the first word in the title is infertile. That's me. Like, yeah. I'm an infertile person. And yes, I have found fulfillment through motherhood, through adoption, but I still feel it. I still get the twinge sometimes when I see a pregnancy announcement or just little things. Or I think how wonderful to be able to have just as many kids as you wanted. Obviously, again, like, that's me peering into someone's life. Who knows? Obviously, what other people are going through, but little things just to be like, okay, let's throw the charts out the window and have another baby. It's how you imagine other people's lives. And especially now at this age, when people are starting to welcome grandchildren, and when there's just so many and all of their kids are doing it, and just little things. There's always just a little reminder that this is your cross. And so, yeah, I think that's important to remember too, is that adoption doesn't fix the infertility. Yeah. And it certainly wouldn't be fair to put that on a kid.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I don't love that you feel twinges, but I love that you are able to share that. And I have shared that too. You and I are both, how long have you been married?
28 years in the fall.
Okay, so I'm still a baby newlywed compared to you, but 15 years is...
That's a good chunk.
It is. So we're obviously in a different place. I know that we have listeners who are in similar situations as us, but we also have some who are still really in the thick of it. But I think in some way, maybe it's comforting and helpful to hear that you can get to a place of peace, at least relative peace, and that even if those twinges come once in a while, it doesn't mean, oh, I guess no healing happened, or I guess I'm back to square one. Like, it's a part of being human. And in a way, now I can see, after all these years, there's a kind of beauty in that, because it's almost like God reminding me that, like, I was made for nurturing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It does make sense. Yeah, that this is how I was created, even if it's not through motherhood or biological motherhood or anything. And also, sometimes I think those twinges are just like muscle memory.
Yeah.
Like, you're just in the habit of doing that. And obviously, without practice, you lose that habit. But every once in a while, you're like, oh, I still know how to do that. Yeah. I still know how to feel jealous. Yeah. And I think sometimes too, and it's hard. Again, I'm talking about memory again, but just writing the book and living through all of it again, I wonder, sometimes I feel like I've reinfected myself with some feelings because, you're feeling them again. You want to be really honest when you're writing it. And so living through all of that again was really big, like more than I thought, actually, when I set out to write it. And that's probably obvious. I think that's would be true with any sort of thing that's like memoir-ish.
Sure.
But I think it's easy to get caught up in day-to-day things and forget about all the things that you've lived through. And even just like your marriage and different places you've lived and places you've done and the way you relate to each other and how you've changed and the things that happen to you. You change a job, you lose a parent, you suffer through infertility together. All these different things just totally like, it's like another little facet on the diamond of your marriage. But I can't remember now because I'm overwhelmed. But yeah, I think that knowing that things will change and can change, that's a good to know, even if you're in the beginning of your marriage, to realize that your marriage isn't just like with resin, like some sort of seal on it. Like it's like more like that slime that the kids make with the glue.
Yeah, sometimes it does feel like that.
Yeah.
But
I guess like it can change shape. You fit in lots of different
yeah.
boxes. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's right. Gosh, I have so many more questions, but we're just about out of time. So I guess the last thing is, obviously you're a woman. So this book is written from your perspective as a woman. You definitely share what it was like for Carter too. It wasn't just your cross. You bear it together, right? So I wonder if you could make the case for why this book is not just for women.
Yeah. I definitely, the sort of main people I was thinking about when I had the idea to write it, when I was writing it, when I was thinking about it, was definitely women like me.
Yeah.
But I think, and partly this is because of some of the responses or emails, like sweet things. I think actually twice it maybe happened that something akin to this story, a man was with his wife in the middle of the night, and she's been so sad and they've been struggling with infertility. He's up in the middle of the night, searching the computer, just trying to read something, came across my register piece, saw the last name, realized he had been one of my husband's law students.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that? And then he reaches out to him, and then they have this connection that they can talk all of a sudden. Like now he knows our story, so he can share his story because we've been so open. And then there creates this opportunity for relationship, for prayer, for everything. And so I think that in that sense, this book can be for men. I think men and women can read it together. I think priests really and seminarians, that's who I'd really like to see read it. And I've had so many priests come to me and say, thank you for doing this. We need this. We need this kind of conversation. I often sometimes don't know, but obviously Springs in the Desert feels a need, just like in the office or in the confessional. I need these tools to know what's this, especially for a woman, but what's this like for a couple? They are called to this vocation where they promise to welcome children. There's no children coming. We act like this is a guaranteed thing.
Right.
This is going to shake people to their core. Here's at least one story and then obviously your story and Mary's and AB's. So I can relate to these people more. Yeah.
Yeah. Love that. I was going to mention priests. I think pick up a copy, give it to your priest if you're afraid to do it. Who knows? You might be walking past his office. The book falls out of your purse by mistake. You don't realize it and you keep walking and there you go. Also, I'm not above cold calling or emailing priests. I've done it before for people. And so I'm happy to recommend the book to any priest. Infertile But Fruitful, Finding Fulfillment When You Can't Conceive. We'll put a link to the book and to all the places where we can find you, Leigh. Thank you so much for writing this book. And thanks for being such a good friend of the ministry. And thanks for being with me.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure, Anne. And thank you for your lovely contribution to my book, too. I love your story.
Thanks. It was an honor to share it. All right, listeners, thanks so much for being with us. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for joining us for this Springs in the Desert podcast episode. We would be so grateful if you took a minute to rate and review us so that we can reach more listeners. Don't forget to check out our social media pages on Facebook and Instagram, and go to our website, springsinthedesert.org, where you can sign up for our newsletter and community prayer list, read our blog, and register for virtual and in-person events. Most importantly, remember that God loves you so much, and so do we.